Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om 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 Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
So today we'll discuss Srimad Bhagawatam Canto 3, Chapter 9, Text 14. Shashvat Svarupa Mahasaiva Nipita Veda Shashvat Swarupa Mahasaiva Nipita Veda Mohaya Bodha Dishanaya Nama Parasmai Mohaya Bodha Dishanaya Nama Parasmai Vishvodbhava Sthiti Vaishu Nimitta Leela Vishvodbhava Sthiti Vaishu Nimitta Leela Rasaya Te Nama Idam Chakrameshwaraya Rasayate Nama Idam Chakrameshwaraya Shashvat Swarupa Mahasaiva Nibhita Veda Mohaya Bodha Dishanaya Nama Parasmai Vishvodbhava Sthiti Vayeshu Nimitta Leela Rasayate Nama Idam Chakrameshwaraya Shashvat Swarupa Mahasaiva Nipita Veda Mohaya Bodha Dishanaya Nama Parasmai Vishvodbhava Sthiti Vayeshu Nimitta Leela Rasayate Nama Idam Chakrameshwaraya Others please.
Sasvat Swarupa Mahashaiva Saiva Nipita Veda Moha Buddha Dishanaya Namah Parasmai Vishvobhava Stiti Vayeshu Nimita Leela Rasayate Nama Idam Chakrameshwaraya
Mohaya Bodha Dishanaya Nama
Sattva Sarupa Mahasaiva Nipita Veda. Mohaya Bodha Vishanaya Namah Parasmai. Vishvo Bhavasi Tilayeshu Nimita Lila. Rasayate Namayam Chakramesvaraya.
Saswa Sarupa Mahasaiva Nipita Veda.
Sattva Swarupa Mahasaiva Nipita Veda.
Mohaya Bodha Vishanaya Namah Parasmai.
Mohaya Bodha Vishanaya Namah Parasmai.
Vishvo Bhava Shtitilaya Shanimita Lila.
Vishvo Bhavasti Tilayeshu Nimita Lila.
Rasayate Nama Idam Chakrameshvaraya.
Rasayate Namayam Chakramesvaraya.
Sattva Swarupa Mahasaiva Nipita Veda.
Sattva Swarupa Mahasaiva Nipita Veda.
Mohaya Bodha Vishanaya Namaha Parasmai.
Mohaya Bodha Vishanaya Namah Parasmai.
Vishvo Bhavasi Tilayeshu Nimita Lila.
Vishvo Bhavasti Tilayeshu Nimita Lila.
Rasayate Namayam Chakramesvaraya.
Rasayate Namayam Chakramesvaraya.
Anyone else? Synonyms. Shashvat, eternally. Swarupa, transcendental form. Mahasa, by the glories. Eva, certainly. Nipita, distinguished. Bheda, differentiation. Mohaya, unto the illusory conception. Bodha, self-knowledge. Dishanaya, intelligence. Nama, obeisances. Parasmai, unto the transcendence. Vishvabhava, creation of the cosmic manifestation. Sthiti, maintenance. Layeshu, also destruction. Nimitta, for the matter of. Leela, such pastimes. Rasaya, for enjoyment. Te, unto you. Nama, obeisances. Idam, this. Chakrama, do I perform. Ishvaraya, unto the Supreme. Translation. Let me offer my obeisances unto the Supreme Transcendence, who is eternally distinguished by his internal potency. His indistinguishable impersonal feature is realized by intelligence or self-realization. I offer my obeisances unto him, who by his pastimes enjoys the creation, maintenance, and dissolution of the cosmic manifestation. Responsively, please. Let me offer my obeisances unto the Supreme Transcendence, who is eternally distinguished by his internal potency. His indistinguishable impersonal feature is realized by intelligence for self-realization. I offer my obeisances unto him who by his pastimes enjoys the creation, maintenance, and dissolution of the cosmic manifestation. Srila Prabhupada's purport. The Supreme Lord is eternally distinguished from the living entities by his internal potency, although he is also understood by his impersonal feature, by self-realized intelligence. Devotees of the Lord, therefore, offer all respectful obeisances unto the impersonal feature of the Lord. The word rasa is significant herein. The rasa dance is performed by Lord Krishna in the company of the cowherd damsels of Vrindavan, and the personality of Godhead, Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, is also engaged in rasa enjoyment with his external potency, by which he creates, maintains, and dissolves the entire material manifestation. Indirectly, Lord Brahma offers his respectful obeisances unto Lord Krishna, who is factually ever engaged in rasa enjoyment with the gopis, as confirmed in the Gopal Tapani Upanishad in the following words: Pararadhante sobudyata gopaveshame purusha purustad avir bhavuva. The distinction between the Lord and the living entity is definitely experienced when there is sufficient intelligence to understand his internal potency, as distinguished from the external potency by which he makes possible the material manifestation. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Lankayate Vidim Jatkaratam Bande Shri Gurum Dinataranam Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stavitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupakadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Panchakalpatarubhishcha Kripasindho Bhidevacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnayo. Shashvat Svarupa Mahasaiva Nipita Peda Mohaya Bhota Dishanaya Mahapasmaya Vishvodbhava Stiti Laeshu Nimitta Lila Rasaya Te Namadam Chakrameshwaraya. Let me offer my obeisances unto the Supreme Transcendence, who is eternally distinguished by his internal potency. His indistinguishable impersonal feature is realized by intelligence for self-realization. I offer my obeisances unto him who by his pastimes enjoys the creation, maintenance, and dissolution of the cosmic manifestation. Quite a purport. Purport could take us in a number of directions. But one thing to note is that even though Srila Prabhupada's translation refers mainly to the Lord as Garbhodakshaya Vishnu enjoying his pastimes of creation, maintenance, and dissolution of the cosmic manifestation, Srila Prabhupada points out in his purport, and here it is following Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, of course, that this is, for Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, this is tasting rasa. This is his lila. This whole cosmic manifestation, its creation, its maintenance, and its dissolution, these are the Srishti lila of the Lord. And this is him engaging with his external energy, his external potency. So we know that there are three broad categories of energies, that the Lord possesses. One is his internal potency, consisting of Sandhini, Samvit, and Hladini, or transcendental existence and transcendental spiritual awareness and spiritual enjoyment, and his external potency, which consists of Kalayam Shashvatam, essentially, right? There's suffering, and it's all temporary. So even the best, the best we can get out of the material energy is temporary. The pleasures are fleeting. So that distinction is there very clearly. However, even though the translation seems to address simply that Garbhodakashaya Vishnu Rasa Lila, as Srila Prabhupada puts it in there, that Brahma is also, at least implicitly, not by the use of the word rasa, there seems to at least be implied acknowledgement of Krishna's enjoying with his internal potency, or through his internal potency, with and through his internal potency, which is superior to the other two potencies. We see in the Gita that he says, we've got these we've got these 8 separated elements of the external energy. Actually, there's 20 some, but he delineates in these verses: earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego. And he says these comprise my separated material energies. And he says, but beyond this, there's another superior energy, which is the living entities, which actually animates. That energy animates this internal potency, because these things are just dead. They can't do anything on their own. The harmonium's not going to play on its own. It needs somebody to sit down and start pumping the bellows and pressing on the keys. The iPhone's not going to record the lecture unless there's the touch of the superior energy. Someone presses the icon to get the app open, and the little button icon to get it to start recording. So, this stuff is all dead. Still, and then there's also some acknowledgement of a sort of intermediary thing. This Srila Prabhupada calls it here indistinguishable feature of the Lord. In other words, it's a feature of the Lord, or an aspect of the Lord, but it has no features. There's nothing really to contemplate or to do there. It's just, it's there, it's spiritual, it's eternal, and it's cool. And we should not, we shouldn't dismiss it. We may dismiss it as a goal for ourselves as bhakti yogis, but that is also transcendence. That is also parasmaya. And then there is the rasa dance that Srila Prabhupada refers to here. He says, indirectly, Lord Brahma offers his respectful obeisances to Lord Sri Krishna, who is factually ever engaged in rasa enjoyment with the gopis, as confirmed in the Gopal Tapani Upanishad. So this is a really interesting, he takes a line from a verse in the first part of the Gopal Tapani Upanishad, in which Brahma says, as I performed the Brahma Savana, I meditated and praised that Supreme Lord who awoke from his yoga nidra at the end of my long night. That Supreme Person appeared before me in the dress of a cowherd boy. He says, Gopavesha me Purusha Purastad Avir Bhavruva. So we've commented on that before, that when the Lord appeared to Brahma at the end of his austerities. It was in this Gopavesha. He was dressed as a cowherd boy. And he made a friendly gesture. He shook hands with Brahma. Like that Prabhupada says, as a friend would with a friend. Really, these verses, some of these verses may seem to glorify different aspects of the Lord, but essentially we see that Brahma is actually praising Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur offers a couple of different readings of this verse, which are kind of interesting. He says, having delineated two types of worship for the devotees, Brahma offers respect to the forms of the Lord worshipped by the jnani and the devotee. I offer respects to that form which destroys the illusion of difference, Brahman, by eternal consciousness, Swarupa Mahasa, just as the ocean was swallowed by Augusta. I offer respects to that form from which arises intelligence caused by realization of that form. I offer my respects to that impersonal form. I offer my respects to the personal form of the Lord who enjoys rasa by the pastime of glancing at Maya, cause of creation, or the meaning can be, cause of creation, maintenance, and destruction. I offer my respects to the Lord who playfully danced with the gopis with pastimes. And then Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur cites that line from the text in the Gopal Tapani Upanishad, and then he ends by saying, these quotations show that among all the forms of the Lord, Krishna is the supreme shelter, since his form is most complete. He also refers to back a couple of verses where Brahma is contemplating the Lord's lotus feet, and those are Krishna's lotus feet. So this is quite a packed. This is quite a packed verse, as are most of these prayers of Lord Brahma for getting the power to engage in this amazing task without being distracted, without being bewildered, without becoming full of himself for it or anything. And that's what these prayers are ultimately for. And we may lose track of this because there are three components to prayer. One is glorification. One is, some call it pardon, you might call it, I have a word earlier this morning, submission. And then there's petition. Then you ask for what it is you're praying for. Now, an interesting thing to note about these prayers by Brahma, does anybody remember with which verse of this chapter the prayers begin? Don't look.
What?
Pop quiz. Bingo. Yeah. The prayers begin right off the bat with verse 1. We're set up at the end of the last chapter, and then Brahma begins his prayers with verse 1. And it's not until verse 22 until he begins to present his petition. And still those verses are like half glorification and half petition. And along the way, he admits his lack of qualification. It's not a big thing. You know, he says, I really need your help to do this. So that's a really interesting thing to note. Prayer is one of the 64 main angas of bhakti. We just started discussing those last night in our in-person Nectar of Devotion class here at the temple. It's a list of 64 things, and then we've got one of them is to avoid offenses, and so we've got several lists of offenses against the holy name, and 2 lists of 30-odd offenses in deity worship that should be avoided, and there's so much to understand. But this sadhana bhakti that's prescribed in in these chapters of the Nectar of Devotion, in the second chapter of the first part of the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, and are discussed again in the 22nd chapter of the Madhya Lila of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. This is the process prescribed by the Lord and his followers for actually attaining the realizations that Brahma is expressing here. And so it's something that we should try to attend to very carefully. We're making an effort. We're going to stumble and fall. If we study Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's Madhurya Kadambini, we see that there are anarthas to overcome, and then there are even obstacles, other obstacles that are kind of generated by our sadhana that we need to overcome before we actually become steady in our practice. So this is actually quite a great science, and it's something that to which we should apply ourselves assiduously. It's probably a vocabulary word somewhere along the way in high school. Assiduous means almost like religiously. You do it very carefully. This is our practice, and by our practice we eventually, we make progress. What is the saying? Practice makes perfect, but first practice makes progress, right? Creates progress. And then we are able to attain perfection by that. And here it comes again, the Pablo Casals story. Or Pablo Casals, arguably the greatest cellist of the 20th century, was being interviewed while he was in his 90s with his performance career far behind him. And he mentioned in the course of the interview that he spent several hours a day practicing, and by that he included running scales and doing exercises and things like that. And the reporter was astonished and asked him, "Why do you spend so much time practicing?" And he said, "I think I'm making progress." So this is our situation. We have a practice, and it's something that we should apply ourselves to as carefully as we can every day. I used to ask my college writing students, because I would, at the beginning of the semester, I would kind of present that writing is a skill, and we all have some ability to do it. Some people are born maybe with some more innate ability for writing than other people, but everyone can become a better writer, and because it's simply a matter of practice. And then I would, ask the students, anybody here, when you were growing up, take music lessons? A few hands would go up, a lot of hands would go up. Sometimes a few hands, but mostly a lot of hands would go up, because our parents care about us. And so I'd ask a few of them, what were you playing? Piano, violin, cello, accordion. And then I would ask them, how often did you have to practice? And it was unanimous. Every day. Every day. At least half an hour. Usually parents were happier if we practiced an hour. And eventually I think we were happier if we practiced an hour. Because as we were discussing last night, that practice creates, as our friend Mindy put it, grooves in our consciousness. We get the muscle memory from the practice, and then these impressions are made in our consciousness, where we're able to play these pieces without thinking about them, without any sheet music even. And you see, people can sit down and play these just amazing pieces, long, amazing pieces, without any sheet music. And so they have the whole thing. So they've made that part of who they are. So if you see someone sit down and play Beethoven's entire Moonlight Sonata, all three movements, without sheet music, pretty far out. When I was a kid, when I was a teenager, I could play the first movement I could play the first movement by memory. Second movement, I usually needed to at least have sheet music there so I could, in case I got lost or got nervous or something. Third movement, and it was just a task. So, this becomes part of our, kind of part of who we are, and it's the same thing with our spiritual practice. If we apply ourselves to it passionately every day, very deliberately every day, then eventually it will create impressions not just in our mind or intelligence, but it will also create impressions in our heart, these grooves in our heart called samskaras, and it will become like second nature to us, and it won't be a task to sit down and chant your prescribed number of rounds of japa, or to rise early in the morning and bathe and come sing and dance in front of the Lord. But it becomes a delight. It becomes something you're looking forward to. You go to sleep early so that you can get up refreshed and come in and just charge all day long. So that's how we get the kind of realization that Brahma has here. His practice was different. He had these austerities in meditation that were prescribed to him specifically by the Lord. But this is ours, and so we should be very careful about applying ourselves to it. Any quick comments or questions?
It says in the verse, indistinguishable, impersonal feature. What does that mean?
What does that mean? It means there's nothing distinct in it. It doesn't have an actual form. It doesn't have activities. It's there. It's like light, how we perceive light. So the Brahman, it doesn't, it's a kind of objectless awareness, in a sense. We're aware of being spiritual, but that's about it. There's nothing to do, nowhere to go, nobody to talk to, no trouble to get into, or anything like that. So it's, let me see if we can find the word. I don't see the indistinguishable directly in the word to word. But anyway, that's how Srila Prabhupada is reading the verse for the translation. And then he brings in Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's insights into his purport, which complicates it, which is a good thing. Challenges us. Is that okay? Anything else? Okay. Thank you so much. Srimad Bhagavatam.
Yeah.
I'm ready to go.